Hi, I'm Christy Krause. I'm from the University of Minnesota, and I want to present some of the work I've been doing up there with my advisors. So I'll jump right to it and say that here we're talking about and considering that there's an inverse relationship between territory size and mortality from intergroup aggression. And of course, we're talking about lethally aggressive species here. And so if we consider a territory that's circular, and it has a core and a periphery, and we place them all adjacent to one another, you would imagine that most of conflict occurs at these areas of overlap, and that there is where you would find most lethal aggression. If we have a smaller territory size, this periphery is occupying a larger proportion of the total area of this territory. And so, if you imagine that the individuals occupying this territory are randomly distributed, which of course they're not, but if we imagine that they're randomly distributed evenly across the territory, that a large proportion are going to be occupying that periphery area and therefore are going to experience that probability of lethal aggression. And so you might expect to find a higher mortality rate for these smaller territories. Whereas if you have a larger territory, this periphery is occupying a proportionately smaller amount of the total territory size. And so you would expect that fewer individuals of the total population are going to be occupying this border area, and that you would expect a lower mortality rate. And so here's just this concept plotted where we're taking the proportion of periphery area to territory area, and I've just plotted it as inverse radius versus mortality rate, so you can see this positive relationship. So this hasn't ever been explicitly stated in the literature, so it's kind of interesting that this might be the case. So we looked for it in two different places, both with an agent-based model and with empirical data. And so the agent-based model was used to kind of add some more complexity to this, to the situation, where we weren't just considering circular territories with very simple geometry, but lots of different shapes and sizes could be accounted for in this model. So just briefly, I'll go over kind of what the rules were for this. You have agents who are occupying the space and they're eating up resources. They have some sort of group affiliation so that they know who to attack and who not to attack. They move randomly. They reproduce. And if they encounter someone not in their group, they will attack that individual. And that may result in their death. So here is what the model looks like, and I'll run it in a second. I want you to focus in on this particular territory. So all of these different colors represent different territories. And you'll see that this one does indeed experience a high mortality rate because it very soon disappears completely. So the results from this, we see that there is some positive relationship between mortality rate and inverse radius. This is robust for a lot of different parameters. So whether you're changing the amount of aggression that's occurring or whether you're changing how many resources are there, you still see that this positive relationship holds, except for no aggression, obviously, because then there's no difference between the periphery and core areas. Okay, so then we looked at some empirical data. So we took empirical data from 18 different chimpanzee populations, and we were able to show that there is some that there appears to be some relationship between inverse radius and mortality rate, where the larger the group size is, the less mortality you see. And That's all I have.